Gonna wait for Stephen and we'll start. I'll do a bit of an introduction before him just while he gets on. So Stephen, here he is. Brilliant. Yo.
Hi mate, how are you?
Hey, you alright?
Yeah, not too bad, you?
Yeah, brilliant. Can you hear me alright?
Yeah, I'm coming across okay?
Yeah, perfect, mate. Spot on.
Excellent.
Cool. Well, I was just about to do an introduction for you, but I think I'll let you do that. But yeah. So, I mean, because we've got sort of two sort of main things we're going to cover, which are both projects run by yourself and this new one started by yourself. But yeah, give yourself a bit of an introduction, mate, and we'll sort of roll from there.
Yeah, so my name's Stephen Wylie. I formed a charity called SHAK, which is a sanctuary for abused dogs, about 15 years ago now. Something that just kind of happened by accident, to be perfectly honest, which we can go through the story. But it was just something that I felt that we really needed, especially up here in the Northeast. And yeah, it done that. And today we've got 43 dogs in kennels at the moment. I've got 8 that share the house with me. And we've saved hundreds over the years, basically taking in sort of put to sleep cases and things like that from the vets rather than your usual standard rehoming side of things.
That's awesome. I mean, I haven't normally, I mean, so this chat's going to be a bit different because the past sort of week of talks have been sort of very much sort of Hunt Sab related, sort of that sort of activism. But I didn't make a lot of notes on this because it's come at a poignant time you reaching out to me, because in the past few months I went through the process of losing a dog and then being able to rescue and take in a dog. And it's been a really quite emotional journey. So I didn't want to try and pre-plan anything because I want to try and be quite raw with this, but I feel like there's parts of this that could get quite emotional. But yeah, so I mean, we spoke briefly off camera, and so what caused you to start? We'll speak about SHAK first, obviously. What caused you to start SHAK? What was it that made you want to do more for dogs?
Yeah, well, I mean, I went into it very much, you know, feeling the same pain as you've felt recently. SHAK was the first dog that I got when I left home and bought my own house. Suddenly 6 months into buying my own house, I realised that if I wanted to get a dog, I just could get a dog. I didn't have to ask permission, didn't have parents to worry about. And I went to the local pound, and this, I suppose, scraggy little German Shepherd cross that was not even a year old, I would have said, you know, he picked me. And I took him home, totally naive, totally oblivious to anything. You just get a dog and that's it, isn't it? And I took him home, and to be honest, I went through 6 months of absolute chaos and hell, but never once did I think about giving the little guy up. And you know, I've tell these stories so many times, but he chewed pretty much anything that he could chew. So it would be the banisters, the front door, the carpets, the floor tiles. You're probably too young for these, but you used to be able to get these horrible vinyl. They look like parquet flooring, but they were just sticky down tiles. And I still, yeah, you remember them. But I bought a set of those because the carpet was ripped up. So I came in the next day, he chewed and ripped all them up. So I thought I'd get my own back, and I super glued them to the floor. And I came in the next day, and there was just you know, parts of tiles where the super glue was left, and the rest of the tiles were all chewed. So we went through absolute chaos together, trying to just, you know, be there for each other. At the time I was working, I didn't really enjoy my job. I was working sort of late nights, and it was just I suppose the whole realization of getting your own home. Yeah. And becoming an adult, I suppose. Just, you know, he was there for me and I was there for him. So we went through that, and 7.5 years later, took him out for a walk one day, got out the front door. He just collapsed and looked up at us, and I knew there was something seriously wrong. Rushed him to the vets, and it turned out he had a cancer called lymphoma, which through the work I do now, I've realised that it's something that you can't really preempt or prejudge. It's just all of a sudden it hits them and it wipes them out. And I lost him, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't take it very well. In my adult life, it was probably the first time I'd lost something close to us. And I just couldn't understand why it had happened and why it happened so young, and everything we'd been through and everything we got to, why his life was then suddenly taken from us. I just had a little girl at the time that he absolutely adored. You know, he used to sit and watch her by the cot and stuff like that. And it just seemed it was such what should have been a happy time was suddenly sort of cruelly taken from him. So I uttered those faithful words that we've all said, that never ever again would I put myself through that or put myself in a position where I would end up like that. I lasted 2 months, and well, basically just one day I woke up and thought, you know, this is ridiculous. You miss having a dog. Let's go. And I rescued another German Shepherd. But in that time, I'd started volunteering for another charity, and it just felt I had to do more. There was something there that was just driving us, that he'd given us so much joy and taught us so much about life as well, you know, that I just wanted to give him something back in his memory, if that makes sense. No, I had my own business by then, and he died in the June, and I lasted to the Christmas, and I messaged my business partner and told him, look, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to go and do something else. And he bought us out of the business, and that was it. I went to work, funnily enough, in the pound that I got SHAK from, on minimum wage, and sort of started a journey that has led us to where I am today, to be honest.
I mean, what's awesome about all these people I've been talking to recently, anyone that's involved in any sort of activism or work to help animals in a way, they all say the same thing. There's no, it's just this feeling of, it's just something you knew you had to do, and that was enough. There's no real, it's so hard to sum up. That's justification enough. It seems for everyone. It's just something hits you or changes something in you, and you just know you have to do something. It's such a, I think it's a really beautiful quality that I've seen in everyone that works with animals, for animals, or against, you know, acts of animal abuse. It's just this need to do more or to be there, and it's such a, it's a thing that it's so nice to talk to people that have that same quality and that same feeling, because it is sort of, as you sort of struggle to say there, it's a hard thing to sum up in words, because it's, unless you felt it, it's like something else. But I think, yeah, I think I should probably get the difficult story out of the way, because just hearing your story then sort of set me off. Yeah, I mean, so I think anyone who's had any pet, especially when you lose your first pet, it's yeah, I still haven't really processed it. So I got my dog Amber it was about 8 years ago. And yeah, it was the first, you know, first ever family pet. We've wanted the dog since we were young, and she was just this little like golden cocker spaniel, just like, yeah, sort of proper naughty, proper destructive, couldn't be trained, you know. And we liked that. I didn't want her to, you know, be a good dog. I wanted her to be free, and just, if she wanted to destroy something, just let her destroy something. And she was just beautiful, man. We had her for 8 years, and then literally during the first lockdown, second lockdown, when I can't really remember, yeah, she got an infection which quickly turned to sepsis, and that was it. There was nothing that could be done, unfortunately, and it was just, yeah, it was probably like the worst thing I've ever felt, like, in my life. Like, I've never, it's horrible. It's really, really, yeah, it's like, yeah, I've lost, you know, family members and friends before, but there's something, it's a different connection with a dog. They give you something you didn't have before, and then they leave you with something you didn't have before. Yeah, they're just amazing. And then, yeah, my family and myself, we went through the really sort of difficult phase of what to do next. I thought, weirdly, my mindset was, I thought we should get a dog as soon as possible. I thought the sort of the best way to deal with it was to get one straight away. But then the feeling of like replacing Amber became really, it just felt quite disgusting. But I thought, for our own sort of mental health, I thought sort of doing that sooner than later would be better. And we put it off for a number of months, and then it got to the stage where I didn't think we would get another dog. I felt sort of like what you said, that the amount of trauma we've been through was too difficult to try and go through again. And then the thought of, like I say, going and sort of choosing a new dog, it felt like replacement. It was just something that none of us really wanted to do. And then, strangely enough, a few days before Christmas, I get a phone call from someone who's with me now, who has also works with rescuing and rehoming dogs. She gave me a phone call saying, look, I've had this dog sort of dropped on me. If we don't rehome it tonight, it will probably end up in a shelter. And with it being the time of the year that it is, and with the amount of dogs given up through lockdown, this dog will probably be put to sleep. And I mean, you might know this feeling as well. For someone like myself, who is such an animal lover, you can't be told that. You can't be told, I've got this animal. If nothing's done with it right now, it will probably be put to sleep. And I was like, no, just bring it around to my house, and I don't know, we'll do something. I must know enough people in the animal loving world to take this dog in. I can't have that. Just, yeah. And then, yeah, she brought this little miniature Staffordshire round. And it was just like the most beautiful little creature ever. And I was like, nah, do you know what? Like, we're keeping this. Yeah, it was like it was to be fair, it was pretty funny. Like, she turned up, and the second this dog was in my house, I was like, we're keeping her. And I rang my dad, and I was like, have you got any dog food in the house? And he was like, no. Why? And I was like, well, I've got this dog. And he was like, well, like, what do you mean? I was like, well, we've got this dog now. So yeah, I took her around to my parents' house, and within 15 minutes of this new dog being with my family, we were like, yeah, we're gonna keep her.
Fair play.
It just felt like the right way to do it. You know, we hadn't gone somewhere and chosen a dog because the dog was maybe similar to Amber or different to Amber. It didn't feel like replacement. It felt like we had this opportunity to take this dog in and give this dog a second chance. And then it's sort of, by doing that, it's given us a second chance. It showed us that by losing one pet and getting another, it's not a case of replacement. It's nothing like that. It's so hard to sum up, but yeah, that was what I've gone through recently. And
yeah, I think it happened so many times that, you know, they find you, if that makes sense, you know. And I always say, we get a lot of people, we're different, which obviously we'll move on to about how we actually rehome and what we do. But I had somebody turn up just at the weekend, and I was speaking to them, and they'd lost their dog a couple of weeks ago, and there was still the tears, and we're not sure if we're ready, and this. And I said, look, you know, just, you know, you're a great home, go away, and when the time's right, the time will be right, and something will come along, or you'll be confident and sort of happy enough with your own emotions that you can then make that decision, you know. And I think that's what with me, it was exactly the same. I had a little old collie cross, bless her, who was gorgeous, and she lived till she was 15 when SHAK died, and it was great having her. But I missed a big, and I didn't realise, but I missed a big daft, you know, somebody to, you know, kind of run around with and go on the river with and whatever. And I just woke up one day and just sort of said, you know, this is ridiculous. You're being so selfish, because, as you said, there's a lot of dogs out there that need homes, and you know, you've got a good home, you can offer one, and that was it, to the penny drop. So I think, you know, I think you can kind of be proud of the way you've dealt with it, in terms of that the dog has found you, and that's it. And like you say, you can never replace them. I've been now through, I dread to think how many I've had in my house since that day, you know, and every single one of them has been special and brought something and taught me something. And that you've never replaced them. Even German Shepherds are my breed, so I've had quite a few German Shepherds along the line, and they're all different, but they've all got the same qualities and traits because of their breed. But no, you can never replace one. It's always just giving, like you say, another one an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, they are just, you know, they're just an incredible creature. I think anyone that has a dog knows I think it's the way I view dogs is like they're the ultimate like personification of love. Like there's this really great quote from, I think it's Ricky Gervais, and he says, like, be the person your dog thinks you are, because your dog thinks you're the best thing in the world. Like, yeah. And I really took that quote, and I think it's something that dogs do for people, is when you're like even on your worst days when you feel like super low or whatever, your dog still thinks you're the best thing in the world, and that's just it's just a feeling and a connection that I don't think you can get from anything or anyone else, really.
So, I mean, that's sort of when SHAK, when I was coming in, and, you know, as I say, I was a young guy with his first house. You know, all the things that your parents tell you cost money do actually cost money. So putting the shower on and then going and watch MTV for an hour has just cost you a fortune in water and electric, and, you know, water rates. Water does actually cost money. It was mad, and I just suddenly, you know, didn't have the money to go out and be with your mates and do whatever you were doing anymore. And you come home from work and you'd had a bad day at work, and you would just open the door in the dark and there would be his tail wagging and just waiting for, you know, what we're going to do next, Dad, kind of thing. And yeah. It's like you say, they're just incredible. And he got me through a really, really, I wouldn't say a bad time, but a difficult time, you know, and a very important time in learning to be an adult, really. And that, you know, you didn't just go home and your tea was ready and that was it. You had, all of a sudden there was responsibilities, and he was a responsibility, but he was also a massive release as well. So yeah, they give you an incredible bond.
I think because so with this so with Amber, it was kind of because she was our first proper pet. I mean, this was 8 years ago, 9, so I would have been 20, 21, 22. So I mean, not, you know, I wasn't young, but there was still the excitement of, you know, new dog, puppy, like all the excitement of wanting one from a kid, and we had an awesome 8 years with her. And then when we've got Lola, this new one, this rescue dog, it's given me a really, like, I don't know, such a higher level of respect for what an animal can do for you, and what especially a pet, a companion, can do for you. Not that I didn't ever undervalue, you know, Amber, my first dog. It's just from losing her and then going through dealing with that and then getting a new dog, it's really given me just such an even higher level of respect for these animals that, yeah, they are just incredible. And to speak to people that do, you know, such incredible work for them is something that just really, it makes me feel happy, that knowing there's people out there that are going above and beyond for these creatures.
Thank you.
So I mean, yeah, let's go into talking about SHAK then, because so from what I gather from how we've spoken off camera, is it's not a rescue shelter in the sort of how it's not like a normal rescue shelter, is it? It's done slightly differently.
Yeah, no, I mean, what it was so going back to that original story, I started work at the local shelter, as they say, and on my second day, it was what they called Vets Day, which is where a lot of the dogs obviously got sold by vets, but it was when the killing was going to happen as well, you know. And that was the one thing that I thought, you hear about it and you know what goes on, but you think, oh, it can't be as bad as what's made out, or, you know, you try and turn a blind eye. And I remember my manager saying, look, you're going to have to go in and help the vet and hold the dogs for the vet whilst they do it. And said, so you're better off getting it out the way and just doing it and getting it out the way early. So on my second day, I went in and there was 3 dogs put to sleep that I had to hold. I can still remember them. As a little Staffy, a terrified red and white collie, a long-coated collie that had gone out and I think it nipped a child or growled at a child or something, and a big Rottweiler that at the time, there were Rottweilers were getting a lot of stick in the press, and you know, there were all these incidents, and so any Rottweiler that came in really didn't have a chance. And not, the flip side of that is that you then had people getting rid of Rottweilers because of the press. So the maybe's done nothing wrong, but were then being turfed out onto the streets and then not making it through the other side, all just because of that breed. And this one had been drugged so they could inject it. And from that moment on, my life changed forever, because it was this isn't right. You know, this I call it breedism, and it's, you know, just because it's a Rottweiler doesn't mean it's, you know, it's going to do anything or it's done anything. And I remember the collie getting dragged across the floor and properly sort of its claws sticking into the floor as they were bringing it into the room, and it was one of the most horrific things that I'd ever witnessed. And this was my second day in what was supposed to be my dream job and a new career, going on to, you know, make the world a better place. So I think it was there and then I just decided that, look, this can't go on. There has to be an alternative. At the time, I probably didn't understand it. I was quite angry. I was quite rebellious. I was older than all the other staff. I sold my business, so I had a few quid behind us. It wasn't that, you know, that I needed the money I needed the money, but it wasn't as if that was, you know, if I didn't have a job, I could have survived for a little bit. And I just felt I had to do something different. So I started going on, getting involved and helping these dogs and trying to find alternative places for them to go, you know, contacting breed specific rescues, making contacts, networking. And it quickly then developed. And I don't know if it's the same with you guys, but people, once they realize that you get involved and you help with things, those people then come back and want help from you. So I was I was kind of trying to place dogs, but then all of a sudden the same person would ring me back 2 days later and said, look, I've got a problem with this dog, and do you know anyone that could take such and such a dog? And it just kind of grew from there. And at the time I'd been very amateurly trying to teach myself how to build websites and pottering on that. At the time SHAK had died, and had concocted this very basic website for it. So I started sticking dogs on that website, and you know, there was probably only me and 2 people ever looked at it, but I felt as if it was doing, and that was probably kind of the start of it. From there, you know, it went on and we got involved, and then we got a few dogs. I got involved with a few dogs that were going to get put to sleep. And again, I mean, it's all the stories that you hear in these places. And again, I understand now why. It's because of space, and it's because they get so many dogs sort of thrown at them, and they don't know every day that there's just dogs turning up as strays. They don't know what's going to come in. And, you know, it's literally things, you know, looking at your T-shirt there, the colour, and I used to call it the colour, you know, just before summer and just before Christmas. Yeah. And it was literally management would walk around, and any dog that reacted to them, barked, growled, you know, show any aggression, or had been there a long time, or was poorly at that particular time, got a big blue cross put on the kennel card. And I remember thinking I'd been clever in asking all my dog walkers and volunteers and stuff who came in to take my dogs out and get them away. At the time, I thought the management was walking through, and I thought I'd safeguarded everybody that I needed to. And there's one slipped the net, and I got called to say, can you go and take Max down to put him to sleep? Being young and rebellious, I told them where to go, and if they wanted to kill it, they could come and drag him down themselves, which I made them do. But I just thought, this has to stop. This isn't right. You know, this isn't what rescue's about. This isn't. Whilst I think I knew it wasn't all fluffy endings and, you know, whatever, that was just so callous and so barbaric. So we did it, and I started getting involved with other rescues and getting dogs out of other pounds. The pound I worked in, we started doing it. If I knew a dog was in danger, I made sure it was shifted before the next vet's day, and it just grew and grew and grew, and people started, you know, very quickly realising what I was trying to do. And there's some amazing people out there that can help in other ways. So I was started getting donations from people that would just, you know, turn up at my front door and say, oh, I heard you help with such and such, there's 50 quid or whatever. So I decided that if I was going to do it, it had to be done right. So we, you know, became a registered charity, opened a bank account. I remember sitting at the bank and the girl at the bank asking us what SHAK stood for. And it just kind of trickled out, as these things do, that Safe Homes and Kindness came out. And that's kind of where it went. You know, we went, and I worked at that particular pound for a year, through many a tantrum, many a T-shirt throwing session at my manager and telling her to shove it and whatever. But I realised that by behaving like that, that wasn't the answer. You know, that those dogs that I was trying to protect then were in danger. But eventually I left, and I went to where the RSPCA rented kennels and kept a lot of cruelty cases. And that opened my eyes even further, because some of the stuff that you see, again, you'll have seen it all with the little patterdales and the jaws bitten off and things with the badgers and just horrific cases, you know, dogs that have been locked in sheds or completely bald. And again, it just pushed me towards that step of doing something, or trying to do something different. You know, in my head, it had gone from being, let's take a dog out of a bad situation and find it a home, into, there's a lot of dogs out here who just have nothing and they have nowhere to go. And if they're not rehomable, then it's the vet's needle. You know, I mean, I saw RSPCA cases go to court people get prosecuted and then the dog get euthanized the next day. And I was like, well, where's the justice? What's the point in any of that? You know, if that was what's going to happen, the dog might as well be euthanized 18 months ago instead of sitting in kennels. And it just filled us with a desire that I had to provide somewhere different. You know, it had to be done. And that was it, really. I went, and then I got made redundant, and I went and worked back in the mobile phone industry for a year, which is what I'd been in previously. And I then got the chance of some kennels for myself, and it was a case of, right, here we go. And that was 11, 12 years ago. I had no idea how I was going to make a living or what we were going to do or how we were going to do it, but it was just an offer that I couldn't refuse. And that was it. We moved into there, like I say, about 12 years ago. What we did, because again, you get inundated with people asking you to take dogs. I've had emails today, you know, it's people are poorly or marriages have split up and things like that. And we just don't have the space or resources. You know, we are still very much a tiny little charity. So it's limited now very much to things like put to sleep cases, and, you know, your vets will ring you, or really badly abused and neglected dogs that the council maybe pick up as strays. I've had ex-scrapyard German Shepherds who come in who were terrifying, but actually turned out to be two of the softest, best dogs that I've ever known. Ex-security dogs, so again, dogs that have been trained by handlers and stuff like that, that were going to get put to sleep. I suppose failed attack dogs in terms of, you know, working with biting sleeves and all these, again, people like doing these displays and stuff. But then the flip side of it is we've done a lot of, you know, ex-working lurchers. So emaciated lurchers with broken legs that have been dumped at the side of the road, dogs that have just been bred from, you know, lurchers locked in sheds and bred from that are emaciated and flea-ridden. And so it goes both sides. I've currently got a lurcher that's lived with me now for about 9 years who's got 3 legs and epileptic and turned up as a stray and had obviously just been turfed out. So it just naturally grew into what it's become, really.
It's an incredible story. There's so many things you spoke about there that I sort of want to go further into. The thing with the things you had to witness in that shelter, and I have a huge respect for vets. You know what they do. You know, I will never say anything against vets, but I feel that they have to have this level. Like, I think initially they come from a level of compassion, but then the things that become the norm to them, like putting dogs to sleep daily, I'm not saying it's heartless, but I don't know. You have to be a certain sort of person to be able to do that and it not affect you the way it affected you. I mean, one of the things, and you know, I do feel bad for the way I reacted to this, but this is just the way that emotionally I am. So when my dog was ill, we got a phone call from the vet, and they basically said, you know, the only thing to do is to give her an operation, but you know, it's got a 80-90%, you know, chance of failure. And what we were basically told was we can do nothing and she'll die, or we can operate and she'll probably die, and the operation is going to cost you £7,000. And it was just said in such a emotionless way. I understand they do this every day, and they have to sort of not show emotion, but I don't know, there was something about it that just really, really upset me. And it was so you're basically telling me, you know, I can either do nothing and my dog dies, or I can give you £7,000 and my dog will probably still die. And it was, yeah, it's just something that, it's something that I just can't connect with. And in terms of what you had to witness, because I feel again quite selfish about this. I've been asked to go down to dog shelters to see what it's like, and to sort of witness that act purely so I can learn more about it. And it's just something that I really feel I will do it at some point, but just the idea of going somewhere knowing that you're about to witness dogs get put to sleep, it's something that I can't really emotionally deal with. And I think I'm quite similar to you in the sense that I always feel there's another way, and I think often, like I am always and often naive in my feeling of that. I know it's not as simple. If there was another way, a better way, that way would be done. I get it is a case of the space in these shelters, the sheer numbers of dogs that it's all human fault. It's all human fault. The number of dogs in these shelters has got nothing to do with the dogs. You know, most of it has got nothing to do with the dog's temperament, or you know, it's purely human fault why so many animals are left in shelters that, for lack of a better words, there's no other option than to put to sleep the sort of the no hope cases, or whatever they name them as. And yeah, for me, it's just, yeah, like I say, I'm the same as you. I just feel that there has to be another way, or a better way, or a different way, where even if we can just reduce the numbers of dogs that are just given no other option than to be put to sleep.
I think it's for me, they were the ones, like you said there, the no hopers. They were the ones that really appeal to me. Do you know what I mean? They're all the misfits and all the ones that don't have a chance anywhere else. So it is that, but then it's like you said, it's education. It's humans' fault, and it's educating, and it stems right the way back for me. I was lucky. I grew up with a rough collie, because I grew up in the years where Lassie was big on the TV and stuff like that. So that's what, you know, my parents got me got the family one of those.
Yeah.
But I learned then how to respect a dog, and how great they were, you know. And I think, again, it's educating children into that, and how to behave around animals. But then it's also about educating people with, you know, what breeds they're buying, what the dogs are actually, you know, used to doing. And I mean, we could talk for hours and hours about how, you know, in the 80s it was German Shepherds or Alsatians that had the bad press. 90s it was Dobermans, then moved on to Rottweilers. You've now got a situation where it's probably Akitas, American Bulldogs, Siberian Huskies, Belgian Shepherds, which are Malinois, which again just aren't domestic pets. You know, I mean, if you ever watch a working Malinois with the Belgian police or whatever, it's you would never have one in your home. You know, they're not bred to lie in front of a fire. So I think it's the education and getting the message out to people that, you know, it's not simply because of the look of a dog that all dogs are the same. And it's not like buying a car where you fancy a red car one day or you want a black car the next day. These dogs are all bred for different purposes and for different jobs, you know. And it's not even the big dogs. Over the years we've had Shih Tzus in, we've had little Pomeranians. I had a West Highland Terrier that was 6 months old that was booked in to get put to sleep at the vets because it was aggressive and the whole family were frightened of it. And this is a true story. The little Westie used to jump up on the settee and growl and bite if anybody tried to get off the settee. So the entire family would sit on the settee till the 6-month-old Westie told them that they could get off the settee. So the guy was late for work. All sorts of things happened because they were frightened of this dog. And we got him, and within a couple of months, we moved him to another rescue who got rehomed. And he went on, he did all these Kennel Club Good Citizens Awards. You know, he went right the way through and turned into a super little dog. And that's the difference. It's knowing what you've got. I mean, at the end of the day, a Westie is a terrier, so they are feisty little dogs at times, you know. And it's like you say, it's people. And until that stops and that awareness and that education gets through to people, then I think there's always going to be the issue of dogs ending up in pounds. And unfortunately, we live in a society now where, when I was little, if a dog growled at you or had a nip or whatever, you got a smack across the backside and said, what have you done to the dog? It was your fault. Now it's not. Now if a dog growls, no matter what's being happened, it's classed as that dog's aggressive. And I hear it so many times. And yes, I'm not saying all dogs aren't aggressive. Likewise, I'm not saying, you know, all dogs, it pains me to say, but all dogs, some dogs, you do have to lose. But you have to understand and look at the reasons of why the dogs behave like that in the first place, and try and sort of work it out. Don't just label it. It's so easy now just to say, oh, it's an aggressive dog or whatever, and that's it, you know.
I mean, because I remember, like, especially when I was growing up, things like the Dobermans and the Rottweilers, they were viewed as the aggressive dogs, and then they were used in things like films and music videos and portrayed as aggressive dogs, and then people got them, you know, for means of intimidation or as fighting dogs. So then they were sort of that sort of false idea of what they were was then personified, and then that goes down to the same realms of, like, I remember a few years ago it was little pugs were the, you know, the popular, because they became like a fashion icon, you know, they became a fashion symbol, and you got all these, I mean, I've spoke briefly about influencers this week and the damage they can do, things like that. You know, you get people like Paris Hilton with a, you know, little dog, and then suddenly sales go through the roof for that little dog. And like, the people who they've got no idea what even the dog is, or its temperament, or, you know, what it is to look after that certain dog. They just buy it because of the ideas of it. It's things like that. I mean, weirdly enough, me and my housemate, we had a talk about this talk a couple of days ago, and we were saying, we both really feel that there needs to be a better sort of process for people to get a dog, you know, almost like almost like you need to have a license or something. There needs to be like a better vetting process for people to get a dog. It shouldn't be as simple as you can just go and buy one from a breeder. And I think, I mean, I would like to know your view on breeders. I think even things like I mean, again, I don't know a lot about the sort of the breeding world. I don't know if you have to have a license, if you've got to be registered or whatever, but I just feel that on one hand, there needs to be a lot more information and education. And I think it's up to the people looking to buy the dog to do that themselves. You have to have you have to have some common sense and take some responsibility. But also there needs to be, I think, stricter measures on getting a dog initially.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, again, that's a question I get asked quite a lot in terms of, you know, what can we do to stop it? People sort of thought bringing, you know, compulsive microchipping in was going to be the answer. But to be honest, it's only the answer if people update the microchips. So we have so many dogs come through, or come across so many dogs who are microchipped, but then you go and scan them and get the details, and you know, they're not registered, or the people have moved, and again, it's different, because if I was to buy a car off you, it's your responsibility to then change the logbook into my name, yeah, and you send it away to the DVLA. With microchips, it's the new owner's responsibility to do that. So if I buy a dog off you and think I'm not going to bother registering it, and then it goes and does something or goes missing, it would still be your details that's registered.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't think the government really thought that one completely through. And I think in terms of licensing, I agree. I think it would be a good idea. I personally think the only way to do it is to make it extremely expensive for a license, unless you can provide a letter from your vet that says that the dog's been neutered. In which case, then it would come, you know, an affordable amount of money, because so many people as well have these dogs, and staffies, as you know, are a greatest example that, you know, that the pal's got a staffy and the guy from the pub's got a staffy, so let's just have a litter of staffies and we'll do them for 50 quid each. Yeah. And that's how, I mean, that's a breed that's just totally ruined now, but it's that's how easy it is. And you know, you can go into the pub and, oh, my mate's selling some staffy puppies, do you want one for 20 quid or whatever? And so I think it's a difficult one to just say, look, this is how it's going to be. But I think there is ways and means of the government, you know, I think it has to come in at that level. The government just, as you say, have to make it more difficult and more of an investment, you know. So it's dead easy just to say, oh, let's just go to the dog pound, get a dog for 100 quid and you know, that's it, done, fine. And then after 3 months, you're sick of it, and I've sold it to me mate for 60 quid. And it has to be more of a commitment, I think, financially. But then we've also had dogs in the pound. I'm sitting there with a bulldog in there at the moment that when I was looking, it's an Alapahar blue blood bulldog, it's called, and I'd never heard of one before. And I Googled them, and the cheapest one I could get was in Manchester as a puppy for 1,700 quid. Wow. And the dog I had in was maybe he's only a year old. So even spending that much money, people, it is just disposable still, you know. So it's difficult. In terms of breeders, I think if breeding's done correctly, it's essential for the dogs and the particular breeds to continue, obviously. But whether that is, again, is rationed to, you know, so many breeders allowed in the country at the time, and, you know, fully inspected and done properly, I think, again, it's down to the person. And if they're a respectable breeder, we've had incidents where the dog's come in, it's microchipped, you train it all the way back to the breeder, you go down, you interview the breeder, you're quite happy with the breeder, you know, is a decent breeder. It's just a dog that's slipped through the net from one home to another, and they're quite happy to take the dog back because they felt it's their responsibility, which is ideal, you know. They're the kind of breeders that you need. But it's the puppy farming and like you said, these little dogs now, people just see it. There's so much money in them, you know, that people can make a living out of it really just by breeding with a few dogs, and that's where it all falls down, to be honest. Yeah.
So in terms of like the trying to get, again, I don't know or claim to know a lot about the laws behind these things. Is there any movements, or is it something you've been involved in to try and change some of the things that we spoke about, or try and influence the government to make change?
I do know people that have tried. I think the biggest one is obviously the breed-specific legislation, which is obviously a ban breeds and stuff like that. It's just, I find personally that it's something that I just feel it's very low on the I mean, I understand obviously with COVID it's totally different now, but I just feel it's always just been something that's been low down on the government's list of things to do. I do know people that have been involved. I've wrote sort of testimonies and stuff to go in as part of their cases. I haven't personally been involved. I've been involved, obviously, again, you know, with your petitions and writing stuff and writing, so as I say, testaments on certain dogs, going to court and things. I've been involved with court cases where a judge will actually decide that the dog maybe can't be rehomed but doesn't want to be euthanized. So we've been involved and we've had to prove, and we've given that dog somewhere to go, and being involved in getting it safe. And I mean, that's a development of SHAK that came over the years as well. All of a sudden you had all these dogs in that had got themselves into trouble, or, you know, had been in situations or been in working homes, and they can't all be rehomed. So that was the next issue that we had, you know, what can you do with those, and where can they go? So we went down the road. I was having a conversation with somebody about donkey sanctuaries and horse sanctuaries, and the penny just dropped that, because I always get asked, so how many do you rehome? Did it all get rehomed? And obviously, unfortunately, the answer to that is no. But what we do is the ones that can't be rehomed just stay with us. Yeah. And I think that was, again, something else that really opened up the work that we did. And like I said, that's when we got involved with court cases and things like that, where some of the dogs, you know, couldn't go back into society, but the police or the courts were quite happy for them to come and see out the days sort of with us. We're quite rural, and we're up in Northumberland, so we've got beautiful countryside. We're not in the town, we're out in the countryside on a farm. So it's ideal, you know, the dogs, all the stress is lifted, and they just, I say, they just enjoy being a dog again, really, and just get back to the basics of you know, beginning to trust people and kind of put their lives back on track.
So something, I mean, I've been a part of a couple of projects with dogs, but I think something that I wanted to ask you about is because there's this whole sort of, I think, misconception behind getting a rescue dog and rescue shelters. I think people still believe that any dog in a rescue shelter is there because it's, you know, it's old or it's sick or it's aggressive, and it can't be, you know, people still have this, it is like we said, I think a huge part of this is lack of information and education, which I think is something that, you know, maybe people like myself and yourself are trying to maybe push it to people. But what would you say to the people that are sort of dubious to look at rescue shelters because of this misconception that none, you know, all the dogs there are no hope, none of them can ever be, you know, turned into a family pet, or the fact that, because I think what's a real shame is people don't understand that the numbers of younger dogs that end up in shelters, it's not just the old and the sick and the aggressive. There's huge numbers of younger dogs there that, you know, really wouldn't take a lot to turn them into like a pet. I'm trying to use the right words here, because I hate some of the language that is used to describe these animals. I think it's really unfair. But yeah. For people that are maybe sort of thinking about looking at getting a rescue dog, I mean, from your experience and knowledge, you know, what would you say to them?
I think the big thing is, you know, first of all, have a look at the breed and have a look at what, you know, think thoroughly about what you're looking to get yourself involved with. So, you know, if you if you're after a big dog, don't go with the idea of I want a big dog or I want a little dog or whatever. Just have a think of, you know, whether you want something that's going to be lazy and lie on the settee and be company, or if you want somebody that's going to walk for miles. And yeah, just research the breed and look into it properly, because that'll prepare you and mean that dogs are all individual characters. I don't doubt that for a second. And there's some amazing characters that I've come across, but certain breeds all have familiar traits, and you see it. You know, it's like I say with German Shepherds. There's so many Shepherds that have been in my life that you can see similar patterns develop in every little dog. And if you can prepare yourself and have that knowledge and understand those things before you take that dog on, then you can help that dog more, and you can be there and be a better owner for it and get it through its problems. I think SHAK for me was a perfect example, because I went in totally oblivious. I just thought I wanted a dog, and I'd always been interested in animal rights and you know, all the kind of stuff, the anti-vivisection stuff back in the day and stuff. For me, the perfect thing was it was about rescuing a dog rather than going to buy a dog. Yeah. But I went into it so naive that a lot of the problems I probably caused myself by not understanding and preempting it. So I would just say, yeah, just look into it, because when you get it right, and it will come right, the dogs are just so, like you said at the start, they're so grateful and so relieved and everything just to get into a home. We've got a little staffy that's just gone into a home a fortnight ago, that when I picked up as a stray was absolutely horrendous. He would fight anything, and anything that moved he would try and kill it. And to be honest, elsewhere he probably would have been put to sleep. He would try and attack the other dogs at the kennels and all sorts. But we got him through it, and he's been there a lot of years, and he's an old man now. But we've got a lady who's very good with our old dogs, and she lost the foster that she had, and she took him, and just seeing him on the settee, you know, getting cuddles, out and about, it's the happiest thing ever. And it's, you know, that's the reward you will get. It's about obviously giving the dog a home and getting the right dog for your circumstances and your family, I think, rather than just rushing out and saying, oh, there's a cute husky in the kennels, let's get a husky, when you work 10 hours a day. You know, just think it through, and because it's such an amazing feeling. You know, every day, like everybody, we go into work, I go into work, and there's days where, you know, you have a bad day at work still, or you're tired, or you're not feeling 100%. And it's just the minute you walk in there and you see all their little faces, and you are their world, you know. And if you take a rescue dog home, it's like you touched on earlier, they're so grateful and so loving because of that, that, you know, to me, I wouldn't say it outweighs the love you're going to get from a dog that somebody bought from a breeder, but it's just such a special thing. And I'll speak to people when I'm out and about, and always, you know, you can see people that are so proud because they'll turn around and say, oh, this is such and such, it's a rescue dog. And that's, I always deliberately say, well, what's the story, you know, because they're so proud that they've given that dog the opportunity. And then you see the dogs there so happy, and you just think, wow, it's just an amazing feeling. And it's just an incredible, like you said, an incredible bond. But just think it through properly. You know, look at the breeds. Don't go in blinkered. Be sensible for what you can give. I think, you know, rather than thinking, oh, we're going to get a dog and we're going to take a dog, think about what you can give a dog, and it'll come back as, you know, it's such a massive reward.
I think you sort of summed up quite perfectly what I was trying to word earlier about. I have a different view on so Lola, the rescue dog I have now, compared to Amber, the dog that we bought, and it's this sort of this feeling that when I'm with her, it's like, and this, I don't know, this sort of sounds so like almost like you want to pat on the back, but it is like, you know, if it wasn't for this act, this dog would probably be dead now. And it's like I say, that I had this just different level of, I think the word's respect for the animal, because it's so hard to sum up, but I definitely have a different viewpoint on dogs now that I've taken a rescue one. And it just this, just this idea that you gave it a second chance. And just from walking her out, I've met up with other dog walkers, and like you say, they are, when I mention that Lola's a rescue dog, they'll say, oh yeah, this is a rescue dog. And it's a nice story to sort of, and I think it's important for people to to tell those stories, because it shows that, you know, where a dog could have ended up to where it is now. And, you know, dogs, you know, the ones that have been difficult temperaments that are now, you know, the best dog in the world. Again, the person who introduced me to Lola, she rescued a collie from the, it was just found on the, she found it on the side of the road, just tied to a lamppost. And she went through sort of 2 years of this dog being, you know, a really difficult animal, but just through the sheer sort of the want to give it a second chance, it's now one of the nicest dogs I've ever met, the most relaxed dogs ever. It just shows that, I mean, education is definitely the main thing, but also it's if you're going to take in a rescue dog, I think you need to be willing to put in the work. You need to understand that, you know, you're not getting a sort of fresh dog. It's going to have a personality and a temperament already. It's you need to be willing to put that work in, and like you say, you will get that respect back. What's incredible about Lola, the little staffy we just got, you know, she didn't come from a place of abuse or anything like that. It's nothing like that. It's just she's come from a place of sort of neglect, I feel. And so now that she's got, you know, so much fuss and people giving her attention and playing with her, you can see the excitement in her. And, you know, because she's quite young still and she hasn't really had that, the only thing with her is she's just a bit nippy, but that's because she's excited and she's playful. And I think people need to understand, we sort of spoke about it, you know, back when I was younger, you know, my next door neighbour, she has loads of dogs, so I used to go around there all the time. And if one did bark at you or give you a little nip, my neighbour was great at sort of educating me on why that happened. You know, you know, I moved too quickly. You know, I spooked the dog. It was often, again, it's often human fault. I think when those situations happen where a dog barks or growls or does whatever, you need to really understand what caused the dog to do that, because dogs by nature they're not aggressive for no reason. Something will have caused it, whether it's the past or something you've done there and then. I think it's, and this is sort of, I've been speaking about a lot when it comes to animals, is you have to have a level of understanding as to why a creature acts the way it does before you can decide, right, we need to give it up. It's an aggressive dog. It's got to be put down. I think it's a very, I think the main thing of this is education with people and the responsibility. Something, again, because we've got a whole other topic to go into, but again, what's beautiful with these talks is I get as much out of it as the people viewing. You know, this is as much for me as for anyone else. And I always sort of reference the hunt coming from a hunt's house perspective. And, you know, I talk a lot about the foxes. Obviously, that's why we're there. But the mistreatment of the hounds is something that is just, being an animal, and especially a dog lover myself, witnessing the treatment of these dogs from the hunt it's so difficult to be there and witness, and I sort of have to not react and not be able to do anything. So in your time with SHAK, did you get many hunt hounds in? Because I know where a lot of these dogs end up.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting if you've had any experience with hunt hounds.
We haven't, to be honest. Again, because unfortunately it's rural Northumberland where we're based, it's something that we have to witness every now and then because they'll pass the farm or they'll be at the farm. But it's something that, no, we've never had one in as a thing. It's something that I dread to think what goes on and where they go, to be fair.
I mean, that was sort of the answer that I was expecting. I know a lot of these dogs, it's savage to even say, but they end up round the back of the kennels with a huntsman's gun to their head. The hunt, I mean, one reason which needs exposing more and isn't spoken about enough in terms of the hounds is the hunt don't want to give these dogs up to shelters for fear of being exposed for how bad these animals are treated. So they will just take them. It's horrific. I've been there. One of the worst things I ever witnessed while being a hunt sub was there was some photos that went pretty viral last year of a hound killed on a dual carriageway. I was there when that happened, and it was, again, one of the worst things I've ever seen. And just the one thing, that the lack of care from the hunt to run their dogs along a hedge line which is parallel to a dual carriageway was, you know, that was infuriating. But then when the dogs broke through onto the dual carriageway, it was hunt sabs that ran onto the road and stopped the cars. The hunt didn't. And unfortunately, one got hit and got killed, and the hunt, and this is a true story. I don't care whatever the hunt say, because I was there. They picked the dog up, they put it in the ditch on the side of the dual carriageway, and they carried on hunting. And they phoned their terrier men to come and pick this dog up. And the dog was put in a box, and it was probably thrown on a bonfire. Yeah, I mean, all hunt sabs will say the same thing. We have nothing against the hounds that are involved in the hunt. I feel as sorry for the hounds as I do for the horses, as I feel for the foxes and the badgers and the hares. It's not surprising that you haven't come into contact with hunt hounds, or any shelters come in contact with hunt hounds. Sorry, not to derail what we're talking about. It's just it's another thing I want to talk about more is the not only the what happens to foxes in hunts, is also what happens to the horses and the hounds, because it's just again, I think it goes back to what we were saying, is for people to look at an animal and treat it in that way. I don't understand it. It comes from a place that I can't even reference.
No, I agree. It's something you look at some of the state. We've got a lot of sort of working lurchers and things came through. I love my sight hounds myself, so greyhounds, lurchers, and the state they come in, and you see we've had a few dumped in with broken legs that have just been dumped at the side of the road. Probably a similar thing to yourself, being running and ex-racing greyhounds that have come in, and it's just what you see is absolutely disgusting. And what I don't understand about it is how somebody can look at a dog, knowing that they've got that dog, whether it's in a shed or whether it's in their kitchen or wherever it is, and see it suffering the way that these dogs suffer, skin and bone, or skin bright red with, flea allergies and fleas crawling all over them and stuff. And that, I physically don't understand, like you say, how people can comprehend that that's okay, and that is acceptable. They wouldn't have that. Well, some people maybe have their children like that. You know what I mean? But it is something that it takes nothing just to treat or go to a vet and get a treatment for fleas or even just feed a dog. But it is. I think it's a world where there is people unfortunately like that, and the more work people can do together to stop these things happening, I think is a big thing.
It's massively important. I remember one of my first days hunt sabbing, and it will stick with me, was there was a moment where the hunters they were gathering their hounds. They were all round up. We were all with them, and it was sort of my first interaction with the hounds and sort of being up close with them. And they had it's even hard to talk about. So when you look into when it's your dog, it's your pet. When you look into their eyes, you can. There's so much behind their eyes. You can see their excitement and their love and the connection with them, and just how bright the dog's eyes are. With the hunt hounds, they're grey, and there's nothing going on, because there's almost no emotion in them, because they're just trained for one activity. And it was really strange interacting with these hunt hounds, and them being so. It was like it was alien to them that a human was trying to give them compassion or a bit of fuss or attention. And it's like you say, it's sort of, again, to my thing with the hunt is how they can view a dog purely as a tool, purely as an object in their game. There's no, again, I don't care what the hunt or what anyone says. There's no love for their animals. There's no connection with their animals. They're trained as a pack for a job. There's no connection between the individual animal, and it's just it's just another reason why I hate them. It's just I can't understand it at all. So in terms of SHAK, is there anything else you wanna talk about before we go into the next project of yours?
No, I mean, I think it's just for us, it's getting the word out that we are doing something different. I think that's a big thing. Obviously, you've touched on it, that we're not a rehoming centre, and it's something that we've gone, because of COVID and stuff, we haven't taken anything in for quite a while, and it's made me gather stock of what we've actually got. and you know, in terms of the dogs that we've got and how can we improve their individual lives and stuff. So we've got a system set up now. We have practical days where I'll take them out and we go to the beach or we go into the town, and in various different ways of assessing how ready a dog is to move, hopefully, into a home. Because at the end of the day, although we're not a rehoming centre, ideally you would like to get as many of these dogs into homes and give people the joy that we've been talking about, and seeing that light in the dog's eyes again. You know, we've had so many come through that have been shut down, and you get nothing from them, and then all of a sudden one day there's just a little spark, and then that's it. These dogs just come on leaps and bounds from there because they suddenly trust you, and that's the key word, I think, trust.
Yeah. And
realise that they've got a routine, they're safe, and yes, they're in kennels, but they're all out at least twice a day. Some days they get them out for 3 walks a day. They've got a routine, they've got a system in place where they understand and they know that they're not going to be hurt. And it's about achieving that and then looking at the next levels where they are. I've got a couple that possibly will never ever get rehomed, but they love going to the beach, so they'll go to the beach once a month or something like that, you know, and I just take them, and my whole day is just them on the beach, and we stop and sit in the sand dunes, or we'll try and hide from the rain or whatever. But for that day, their whole life is just about that moment, and you can see them, they go back to the kennels, they're absolutely exhausted, but they're so content. And that's what we try and do. We just try and give them as much back as we can, and kind of give them as much of a life as we can. It's not ideal. If you said to me, look, what would you prefer, do your job, or would you prefer that there was no need for your job and all these dogs were in homes? You know, I would take that every time. But unfortunately there is, and I've got a great team of people that behind us that share that belief. And again, it's taken, 15 years for us to get to where we are, but I do genuinely believe that people have the same beliefs as me now that are there. And it's just getting the word out to people that there is that alternative, and it doesn't have to be all the time that just rehomable, non-rehomable. Yeah. Sometimes it just takes them a little bit longer to become rehomable or to enjoy life. You know, some of them have been kennelled for so long that it's actually daily and putting them into a home. I mean, that's another thing that people don't quite understand. If you've had a dog that's just constantly lived in a kennel and know nothing else in its life, you then go and put it in a warm room with a TV in the corner, and that just freaks them out, you know. So yeah, it's just about, I suppose, just trying to give them a little bit back and to try and take them from that situation.
I think
life, you know?
I think what's great there is you said the exact same thing that I've been saying in terms of hunt sabbing. It's I don't want to be a hunt sab. I'd rather hunt sabbing wasn't a thing, because I want hunting not to be a thing. The same with what you're saying. The idea that dog shelters have to exist is really upsetting. I'd rather they didn't exist. I'd rather every dog had a home. But unfortunately, until that's a reality, these things have to be done. And it takes people like yourself and like the hunt sabs to go through, because I mean, it is incredible work, but it's got to be, it is difficult and it is emotional. Again, thankfully you've sort of removed yourself from the levels of the having to put the dogs to sleep and stuff, but it doesn't make, I imagine that even with that being removed, sometimes what you have to do is difficult. But like you say, it's sort of something that I'd rather do it than witness it and want to do something about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think
that's the key. That's the key. Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think that's the key thing. Do something about it. You know, that's the thing. And all those years ago, I realised that there was something going on that was wrong, and I've done something about it. And I'm very proud of that, but I'm also very grateful to the people that have helped us through it and to get to where we are. And yeah, I think that's the big thing. Do something about it.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly commendable, mate. So let's move into the next project, which you spoke to me about, which is Fountainhead, which I'm going to let you sort of, because again, what was quite good is we spoke about it off camera, but then we didn't really go into the depths of it, which is why we decided to do this live stream. So I think it would be nice for you to introduce it on this platform to sort of my followers and to myself as well. Yeah,
no, Fountainhead's something that I just came up again during lockdown. There was time and what have you, and I started coming up with ideas. I was how old was it? I was 15 when I became vegetarian, and I was vegetarian for 30 years. Always said I would make the next step into becoming a vegan when I felt I could cope with it and do it right. 2.5 years ago, I made that step. I was very lucky my girlfriend had made it before me, so she found all the pitfalls and was a huge help just getting me to that point where I understood it. And I've always been, or I'd like to think I've always been quite creative and doing stuff. I've written a few books. I've always designed all the SHAK merchandise and stuff like that. And Fountainhead, to be honest, is just something that came to my mind of getting that message out. Again, doing something about things, but just without any boundaries and without any barriers, if that makes sense. So it's obviously at the minute, you'll have seen it, it's your general merchandise, your T-shirts, your badges, your mugs, your bags. And it's promote, I describe it as, strong vegan beliefs with a, punk and indie influences. By that, I mean, obviously, music was a big thing for me growing up. So the Smiths album, Meat is Murder, all those years ago, was what talked me into becoming vegetarian, if I'm honest. And I just wanted to try and mishmash everything that influenced my life into one project that is just out there for people to see, and whether they like it, whether they don't, whatever, Like everybody, I need to make a living. So, there is a business aspect to it. But for me, it's about just getting that word across it and doing it. So obviously seen a lot of the slogans are vegan type slogans, or, anti-meat slogans, if you want to say. And just use it. I've got nothing against all, you see all these little friends not food and fluffy pigs and stuff like that. And totally for that, that's brilliant. But that's just not my belief. That's just not the way I see veganism and what it should be. And I just felt it was just a great project to get out there and try and get people involved or to understand why I see it and what I do. And trying to cover the whole spectrum of animal abuse, really. So it's not limited just that it's a vegan brand or whatever. It's down to the whole thing with animals. Of, like I say, I remember in Newcastle town centre there's a big monument called Gray's Monument, and there was all the anti-vivisection people when I was growing up as a 14-year-old wannabe student with me, Doc Martens and me Morrissey Quiff at the time, which I know you won't believe now. But yeah, I remember reading the leaflets and seeing all those things, and Greenpeace and all these kind of things, and just something a little bit different and a little bit out there. If you ask me what the project is, I really couldn't sort of pigeonhole it. It's just expression, and it's just a little bit of creativity to that I enjoy doing, and to get the message out and to approach people. I think I'm trying to look at it by making people aware, but also by uniting people that have the same beliefs. And already through doing it, I've got in touch with yourself and made that contact, and it's just trying to grow that. I mean, I watched one of your talks last week that was about I'm trying to think who it was you were speaking to, but it was about, you were talking about getting other people involved and the passion of working with other people. And although you're focused on your project and you run it the way you run it because it's your passion, it's your pride. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what
is. I imagine that would have been with Rob from Keep the Band.
Keep the Band, yeah, that was the one. Yeah. And that just that had a huge influence on me, because I was it was just that is spot on. That's exactly what I was trying to do, but hadn't thought of those words. So it's just a side project of, like you say, getting out and promoting stuff and getting the message across. Quite where it's going to lead, I'm really not too sure, to be honest, but it seems to have been well received so far. And like I say, it's things on a different slant. I've had people in bands have worn merchandise and done it, and then just ordinary people off the street that are involved in other projects that have taken it on board as well and like it. So yeah, it's just I called it Fountainhead. Fountainhead was a word that years ago when I was growing up, a lot of bands seemed to have song names or whatever that had the word head in it. Even bands like Radiohead, and a band called The Primitives had a song called Spacehead, and I love that word something head,
Yeah.
and there was a street next to where I lived called Fountainhead Bank, and I always thought Fountainhead would be great because for me it's just I picture a fountain of whatever coming out of somebody's head, and I guess that's what this is. It's just me pouring a load of shit out of my head and,
That's sick.
and seeing what people think, you know.
I think I mean, again, you touched on a number of points there. I think in terms of the music, I think what a lot of people don't get, because I think something that is, again, we talk about misconceptions. I think there's a misconception of vegans that they're all, you know, we're all tree hugging hippies who just sit about in the grass and smoke weed, and you know, we're sort of quite soft creatures. But quite a lot of vegetarianism and veganism come from a very punk background. It come from a very sort of anti-establishment, anti-government, anti-police background. You know, huge numbers of punk bands were vegetarian or vegan. You know, that they were the ones that were part of the original Hunt Sabs, and that influence. I mean, you spoke about a band that influenced you. I remember there's a punk band called Rise Against. They were the first band that influenced me to go vegetarian, because one of their music videos, it was just purely just slaughterhouse footage. And, you know, that's, without going into the idea of use of slaughterhouse footage, you know, to me, that was such a punk act to take this footage that, you know, farmers didn't want the public to see and put it in your music video and say, look, this is the reality. This is what's going on, you know, to expose acts of, you know, injustice is probably the most punk thing to do. Yeah. And there's a I mean, just from my music background, I've got a huge punk influence. The fact that it goes hand in hand with activism and veganism is a thing that I think it, again, isn't spoken about enough. I think when, in terms of, like you said, because a lot of people don't know, so I had Stay Close before I was vegetarian when I started Stay Close, but it had nothing to do with my opinions and my beliefs. It was just a sort of like what Fountainhead is for you, but without the morals. It was just a place where I could it was a place where I could throw all my creativity. Yeah. But then, you know, as Stay Close grew, and as, you know, I did more research into hunting, into animal agriculture, and then a thing that I need to do a video on is vivisection, because I spent a day at a rally in Oxford on vivisection, and it left me so shattered, and just I couldn't believe what vivisection was. I didn't believe a level of cruelty on that level existed in literally where I live, in a university that I walk past every day. That level of cruelty. But yeah, so you know, I was going through, you know, attending rallies, and I was looking into hunt sabbing, and so when I went to sort of put those views and opinions into sort of merchandise, I did a bit of research into, like, you know, other vegan clothing companies or companies that were, you know, about veganism or about animal activism that had merch, and looked into what they were doing. And yeah, it was a lot of very sort of cartoon images of like baby chicks, and it said things like "chicks, not nugs," and all these sort of quite cutesy slogans and cartoon imagery. And it was sort of like what you were saying. Even though I believed the message, I believed the morals of the company and where that idea is coming from. You know, I was a 24, 25-year-old heavy metal loving skateboarder. I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't going to wear you know, a brightly coloured T-shirt with a picture of a lamb on it. You know, yeah. There was this huge gap in the market, I think, for merchandise that had a message, but that was still, you know, like was wearable, and was, yeah, people from sort of mine and your background could wear with pride. You know, I spent years in a band, and was, you know, a large part of the music industry, especially in like the heavy metal type genre. So I had a lot of experience in band merchandise, you know, so I sort of knew what that sort of genre of people wanted to wear, the style of merch, the style of designs, but also, like I say, those sorts of people also had huge beliefs and huge moral standing, but there wasn't that. I didn't see that was being what's the word? Yeah, that wasn't being portrayed by a company selling merch, which is why, yeah, I think I was in a fortunate position that I had all that information, and I was able to sort of come up with with products and merchandise and designs that had the messages, but was attractive to that sort of people, which I think is what, from what I gather from Fountainhead, is that sort of idea is putting out these messages to not to a different audience, but just to accustomed to a wider audience.
Yeah, definitely. I think just doing it on a different slant, and you know, if it gets noticed because of that, then that's great. You know, as I say, I'm not doing it. I'm not running it as an organisation where, you know, I have my Ferrari parked outside and looking to retire. You know, it's not that at all. It's literally about getting the word across to people, and like you say, doing it in a slightly different manner, and see what comes of it. And if none sells, then none sells. That's fine. Some things will sell better than others, I think. You know, obviously the Eating Dead Things T-shirt. As soon as I came up with that, I knew that would be something, because for me, that's what it is. And I know I was speaking to my mum about it, bless her, who understands it but doesn't approve of some of the language, shall we say, or whatever. But she respects it and understands it because she sees what it's trying to achieve and what it's all about, you know. And I think that's what it is. It's like anything. I mean, music. You mentioned sort of heavy metal and stuff like that, you know. And I grew up, like I say, with indie bands and the punk scene from the late 70s. I got into sort of in the mid 80s or whatever. Well, not late 80s. And I think it's drawn on those things because that was such a rock solid time, and there is a lot of people still into those kind of things. Obviously, I know music these days is completely. I sound like a total old man, but the music these youngsters listen to these days. But you know, they did influence you. That's the thing. That's what it was about. And I think it's just a really, to make that connection of people that are into those kind of things, and like you say, display it. And I'll be honest, I followed your work for a long time, and loved what I was seeing. And I was thinking, you know, this is where it should be. And that, I suppose, the influences then kind of come, and obviously Pins and Knuckles, and seeing some of the work they were producing for other people and stuff like that. And it was just something to get involved with and just try it, you know, and just see what went with it. And it's been real good fun sort of finding suppliers, finding contacts that you make, and looking at other people's work, because I think it is, especially in these lockdown situations, you know, everybody's trying to make a living. And you look at some of the things on Instagram and some of the people that I've come across that make, you know, badges or make sew-on patches that I didn't even think they made anymore, because obviously that was so long ago when I used to have them all over me rucksack, and like, yeah, it's just been a great experience and a great little journey, to be honest, that is taking us down to doing something. I think long term I'd like to get out and about into the vegan fairs, into the record fairs and all that kind of stuff, and just speak to people about what it is I'm trying to do and what it is. And I think it's a big influence from what goes on with SHAK and where that is, because that's been my passion of my life for 15 years. But there is times you want to come in. I say, I've got 8 dogs at home, so it's not as easy as just shutting the door and forgetting about it. Yeah. But it is that, it just gives you that motivation, and it's that cut off and that distance from what it is. But I couldn't sit there and start knitting or doing crosswords or something like that. You know, it had to be something that was making a statement or making a point or trying to get a message out, I think. And yeah, it's been quite an enjoyable trip so far.
I've got to say, the t-shirt design is fantastic. I really like it. Yeah, I think what's funny, and the fact, you mentioned the culling shirt that I'm wearing now. Yeah. I found, because it was something I tried to do with Stay Close. Again, it's like I say, I tried to keep it subtle. I tried to keep it, you know, about the artwork with a nice slogan that had a meaning. And then, because I didn't want to try and be too loud or too brash or too, I don't know. I don't know why I felt that way to begin with, and then we did one shirt, just huge letters, just says "fuck the hunt," huge letters on the front of it, and just, you know, it was, for me, it was more just, it was as much a joke for myself as it was just to piss off the hunt. I didn't care if nobody bought it. I just wanted to have it, just to annoy them, and the response to it was just great. And I think what's fun is when people question the language. Obviously, you know, I'm not saying that I've started this phrase, but the phrase "fuck the hunt" that I use a lot. When people challenge me on the use of language, I sort of say to them, well, if the word "fuck" offends you more than the act of hunt, that's your problem. If the word "fuck" offends you more than what hunt is, then that's not my fault. You've misunderstood the context of language. You've mistaken the use of a word for a word's act. So I think that it's just sort of a funny way to one thing, just piss people off. But I do find it funny when people get offended by the language used to describe an actual act that is fucked up. It's really funny. But yeah, the t-shirt design you've done, I think is brilliant. I really like it.
Thank you. I mean, I think with me that the most offensive, because I looked at that and the original design had the full fuck word in it.
Yeah. And
then I put the asterisks in, and I thought, because that softens it, but then I thought, actually, no, that brings more attention to it. But for me, the most offensive thing is that it's eating dead things. So the one word that people are finding offensive is actually, it's the other three words that it's about. So yeah, it was just probably the same as yourself. It was just I did it and I was laughing and just thought, this is going to be something that I've got a mug at the kennels because obviously I've got them printed on mugs as well, and people just shake their heads when they see it, and I walk around with mugs and stuff. But it is what it is, you know. It's I think sometimes people, you've hit it spot on. Sometimes people need to look at the message and just understand it, and hopefully between the pair of us we can do a little bit of that.
Yeah, I mean to be fair, the way I looked at the shirt with the use of the asterisk is, I think that makes it look more punk. I didn't view that as you were afraid to have, that word on your t-shirt. To me, that makes it look more punk. And I think what's interesting about the use of asterisks is it draws people in because they know the word they're reading. Like that word says fucking more than the word fucking says. Like, do you know what I mean? That says it louder because of the use of the asterisk. It's so funny. And again, people consider that less offensive because you haven't shown them. It's still the same word, but to be offended by that more than the act of eating a dead animal, like you say, that's where they haven't quite aligned the context of what they're reading, or don't fully understand the situation being put forward to them. I mean, I mentioned this, the culling design, even when myself, because we did this as a collaboration with a brand called Punk Paws, who are a brilliant brand. If people watch and go check out Punk Paws. Even when we were designing this and we come up with a rough sketch of what is literally a dead hunter on a plinth in a forest, even I was like, that is a bit strong. Like that's quite extreme imagery. And then it became like, I would never joke about the idea of killing someone. That's not the point of it. But just the idea became so silly, and it became so offensive. That's why we decided to run with it, because I was like, this is only going to piss off and offend the people I want to piss off and offend. And to other people who view it, they understand. It's not the fact that I'm sat here saying, let's go and kill hunters. It's just funny. Like, imagery and artwork can be so in-depth and clever and intricate. But I think sometimes just sort of being a bit offensive is just the right way. I don't know. I always find it, this goes with life in general. I find it funny what people are offended by, especially when it comes to language over context. But I think more, like you say, the t-shirt you did is brilliant, and I think it was great that was the sort of the first sort of t-shirt you've come out with, is the straight to the point, big, bold, in your face message.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think it was just something. Everything about that just clicked. The font and everything. It just all seemed. It just worked together. And yeah, like I said, I've sold a few, and it's early days, and it's something that it was just something that I had to create, and yeah. Hopefully others will see it and have a look after this or whatever, and yeah, it's just good.
I think what's nice, and again, in terms of you saying about reaching out to people, what's been so nice about all of these live streams, and I do hope they continue. This is the last one I've got booked up, so I'm hoping I get more people interested. But it is the people like you reached out to me, Rob reached out to me, Mind Control, the artist from Bristol, reached out to me, all because we all share, this same mindset, the same passion, you know, albeit in different avenues or from different experiences or based from, you know, different knowledge. What I'm finding with talking to anyone that is involved with, you know, working against animal abuse, or everyone's got the same mindset of it's just a thing that they have to do, and that it needs no more justification than that. It's just something that we all feel we have to do despite our avenues. And the more people that come together in whatever way, whether it be just, you know, a chat over Instagram or a collaboration t-shirt or whatever, the more people working together, the better impact it's going to have. And I think what's really nice is the refreshing feeling of you're not on your own. Again, I've said this through most of the live streams, that there's been times, you know, before I knew what the hunt sabs were, before I knew what Sea Shepherd was, I felt I was the only one that was against these things. I felt that I was the only one that, you know, believed the hunt were just the worst people on earth. And it sort of makes you not want to project your views because you feel you're the only one. And then what's been great, you know, recently is just there's so many, the more people you reach out and talk to, the more people you realize are like-minded. And the more people that, you know, there's more, I truly believe there's more of us than there are of them in any terms of, you know, animal abuse or animal mistreatment or whatever. It's really backed myself up that it's worth having these, you know, extreme views and to push them and to not be afraid of them, whether it be through the language we use, the artwork we put out there. I just think it's great that more and more people are coming together. And I think it needs to be done. Like I say, everyone's got an input, everyone's got a talent, everyone's got a way of looking at things. And the more people that work together, as I've said, in terms of collaborations, I always believe you're going to come out with a better product. And it does take a lot to open your thing up to someone else, your creation, your passion, your project. But, you know, I've only ever come away feeling that the end result has been better than if I tried to do this on my own.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's going back to getting that message out. It's the only way, you know, the more people working together, the more powerful the message becomes. And that's the only way that things are going to change, by people being aware of it. And, you know, people talk to me about obviously what we've spoken about for the last hour or so about the dog shelters and the killing and stuff. And a lot of people don't believe that goes on, or try and blanket. And it's not until you actually speak to them. I get roped into doing talks in various groups and stuff, and it shocks people, you know. And I think that is the way of doing it. People coming together, communicating, sharing experiences. And people just realise then that we do live, unfortunately, in a world that animals, you know, aren't seen with the same respect that perhaps me and you give them, you know. So, yeah, definitely think it's great. And I've enjoyed watching some of the things, because it's opened my mind to other things, although my views are, you know, I would say essentially the same as yours, but it's experiences of what actually goes on that makes even me think that, you know, well, bloody hell, does that really happen, you know? So yeah, it's good. And obviously, you know, with if that's t-shirts, live streams, whatever it is, then yeah, it's fantastic, I think.
I think it was, I mean, especially from, I'm glad we got the quite difficult conversations out of the way, because that almost ended the live stream for me there, and then that was so difficult to talk about. And I think it takes a lot of, I don't know what the word is, emotionally it takes a lot to be able to talk about the things that I imagine you've had to talk about quite a lot. And yeah, it is shocking. And I think what's important is there's people like yourself that are willing and capable to go and talk about these things. Like I say, I wouldn't be able to do what you've done, you know. Put me in a field with, you know, 30 hunters that all want to smash my face in. I can handle that. But you put me in a room and tell me to hold a dog until it passes. No, that's just something that is, yeah, that's beyond me. So for people like you, it's massively respectable.
No, thank you.
But yeah, so I mean, unless there's anything else you want to say about Fountainhead, mate, we can sort of.
No, I think that's it, mate. I think we've covered what it was. As I said, it's just something that's out there, and it's just something that's given me enjoyment, and something that we're looking for, you know. And people can follow it on Instagram and see where it goes, you know. because I don't really know where it's going to go myself, you know. But hopefully it'll just get the word out there, and people will catch on to what it's all about, really.
So I mean, just so that I'm clear, so SHAK is still continuing, right? You're not.
Yeah, SHAK. Yeah. That's my day job basically. Yeah. So that's still on, and you know, that'll be on. We've got 43 dogs in the kennels at the moment, so that's them. People can check that out at www.shak.org.uk. We are on Instagram as well, which is Shak_the_sanctuary_official. And that's something that that's something I'll never be able to get out of, to be honest. I don't think, you know, it's something that's just there, and we've got so many dogs in there that just need help. So yeah, we're always looking. We've got charity shops as well. We've got 2 shops that are currently closed, so the financial strain at the minute's a bit of a worry, but people are working behind the scenes and we're doing all we can, so that's still there. And like I say, this is just something for me, just away from there, to switch off and try and do something different, but still put a message out there. But yeah, no, SHAK's still going.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, yeah, I'll make sure that I tag both SHAK and Fountainhead in this. But yeah, honestly, that was I knew parts of this chat was going to be difficult, especially talking about my first dog, and then it was good. I felt that was really important. Again, yeah, thank you. Not just for the work you've done, but for joining us today. This has been wicked. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Harky. Thank you very much. Thank you for getting us on. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, cool. Right. I'll speak to you in a bit.
Okay, mate. Cheers. Bye.
See you later, buddy.